Yeah, I'm not really a fan of just kids in general, and then like seeing a bratty kid named Pinocchio just wreak havoc doesn't help me really like the movie. But
I don't understand.
what's up, YouTube? Drive By Movies here, and you're watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is James.
My name's Blaze.
And today we're checking out the new film that hit Netflix, not the Disney Plus one, the Netflix version of Pinocchio.
Life is such a wonderful gift.
Pinocchio is the classic fairy tale that tells the story of a father's wish magically brings a wooden boy to life in Italy, giving him a chance to care for the child. So this is the classic fairy tale we all know and love. Most of us have the kind of memories of seeing the original Disney movie, but this was a fairy tale before the Disney film. But I think most people's knowledge of Pinocchio definitely is related to that Disney movie, or maybe it was the Italian, was it like 90s or early 2000s adult Pinocchio movie?
I hated that one.
with Roberto Benigni.
Yeah, I remember that one. I remember my grandparents taking me to the theaters to see that one, and I was so annoyed.
Remember, like, he won an Oscar, and then he could do anything he wanted, and for some reason it was Pinocchio.
Yep, interesting choice, but yeah.
But anyways, so this is Guillermo del Toro's interpretation of Pinocchio, but also the interpretation of the original fairy tale. He has some creative liberties here and there with this film. Tells the story of Pinocchio where we're used to him just not following the rules, just doing everything opposed to what his papa wants him to do. And yeah, I felt like this was a interesting interpretation of Pinocchio. This film was very entertaining. The stop motion was absolutely enthralling to watch, but I guess maybe just the story of Pinocchio for me, I would say, like, I have fond memories of that Disney version, but I had no interest in really seeing the live action Disney version, I guess because I like the original. I have fond memories of it. I don't really need to see a live action version to change that. And then this, I'm interested in the Guillermo del Toro aspect, but that character Pinocchio's, I think I realized why I didn't go back and watch the Roberto Benigni version. But maybe that one would have been better because he's an adult from the start. I don't know.
There's also the Jonathan Taylor Thomas version, and if you don't know who he is, voice of Simba, and then also, of course, Home Improvement. I was like having flashbacks seeing that one also, and I'm pretty sure my grandparents also took me to go see that one as a kid. It's just funny that we have like a couple live action movies already from the 90s, and then we just got one this year starring Tom Hanks as Geppetto, of course. But I don't really know anyone who saw that movie. It's only a couple months old. It's directed by Robert Zemeckis, and I just heard nothing but bad things about it, which is unfortunate just because, I don't hope for movies to be bad, but, I'm not on board with the Disney remakes. And if I were to show any of my kids that my friends have, sorry, I don't plan on having kids, but that's a whole other subject. But completely, I went off the rails there. But if I ever have to babysit, sure, I'll put on this remake, but also the classic one is still just fine. But I do like the different take on the overall fairy tale aspect of Pinocchio. This is a whole different version that we haven't seen, but overall the same themes and storyline is all there to begin with. This one's a little long, so I guess if you have some wild kids that you want to sit down for a longer period, then this is the go-to one. But if you just want them to be quiet before bed, maybe the 60-minute version or the 70-minute Disney version is the way to go. But yeah, what are your overall thoughts on it? Just because, I'm not really a fan of just kids in general, and then seeing a bratty kid named Pinocchio just wreak havoc doesn't help me really like the movie, but it is good. But yeah, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of the technical aspects. I like a lot of the different avenues that the story took that were, you know, not as similar to the original Pinocchio Disney film. I know that's not the original interpretation of Pinocchio, so I'll preface that. Obviously, the one that I think everyone, you know, thinks of is that Disney film. I think that this took other avenues that were interesting, especially a lot of the fascist elements. But yeah, I think the thing that stuck out the most for me was just how annoying the character Pinocchio is. It even reminded me, like, I think I almost have rose-colored glasses on when I think of Pinocchio, and I don't think of all the times where he's just literally disobeying. The whole story is essentially just how he disobeys his father, and how essentially, you know, it's just to teach kids not to be a bad kid. Essentially, that's like literally what the fairy tale was made for. But I like that this had some elements that I feel like I don't remember the Disney version or any of the other interpretations kind of like expanding upon. Like, I like that this expanded upon the concept of how Geppetto kind of really wants Pinocchio to be his original son that he lost. Like, that's essentially like it is like through the grieving process, you can't like have a new person be somebody that they're not, essentially. And I like that aspect to this film because I don't feel like I remember that from any of the other Pinocchio. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember that from any of the other versions that I've seen. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think in the original Disney version, like, I always just found the idea of Geppetto just weird. He just wants a freaking kid and just like creates a kid and just like hopes someday that it'll become a real boy. Like, I was like, my man, sounds like Geppetto right here or something.
You're gonna do that. Yeah. Or I was gonna do it if you weren't. No, it's Geppetto.
Yeah. But with this one though, I actually really enjoyed the first 20 minutes of this movie, and it could have been its own thing per se. Like, of course it's called Pinocchio, but like, I liked the Pinocchio origins aspect of this movie with, you know, going into Geppetto's son. Yeah, no, right? Because that's what it felt like. I was like, oh, this is really good. Like, I was really enjoying like seeing his relationship with his son, you know, like, and there's not really spelled out what happened to the mom, but, you know, you assume she probably passed away at a really young age and stuff. I assume maybe even at birth. They might have clarified that, but I don't think they did. But like, you know, there's enough there to get the gist of it, and then just seeing how much they care for each other. It's just them and stuff. And then, you know, bringing in the aspects of war and how it affected their country, and then, you know, how it took away his son from him. I really like the direction that it went in. But of course, you know, you got to get into the story of Pinocchio. Guillermo del Toro, you know, had the rights to make this movie through Netflix. So you got to get to the actual plot line of Pinocchio. And that's where the movie overall is like pretty good. I like the more fantastic elements that it went in with, like meeting death, and then also the fairy godmother. I thought was an interesting take. And even also with Jiminy Cricket too. I don't really remember how Jiminy Cricket is in the original, but also his name wasn't even Jiminy Cricket in this movie. It was Sebastian, right? Sebastian J. Cricket, I believe. And yeah, like I liked the different take on him. Like, overall it's the same storyline, but he's a little bit more of like, I want to do only stuff my way and do things for myself, but he's given this opportunity to get one amazing wish. And, you know, there's a lot of great character growth on what he uses with that wish towards the end of the movie, of course. But yeah, it's an interesting take overall.
Yeah, I thought that this is definitely, when it comes to like stuff that was on, the thing that I kept thinking about, I guess, was like, I was like, is this like when I started, I'm like, is this gonna be like a Christmas movie? Because I did think it was interesting that it was being released at this moment. I think it really just has to do with the fact that right now a lot of families are together, so this is a movie that, you know, all ages can kind of watch. Even though this is definitely like a darker take, it's never dark in the aspect of like a Tim Burton type dark take, but it's more like actually dark, a lot of the themes in this film. So, because I know that sometimes Guillermo del Toro like unfairly gets kind of credited to be like similar to Tim Burton in that kind of gothic-esque stylization, but this definitely isn't that movie. I felt like it's really just dark when it comes to its themes. Some of the interpretations in this movie were also like more gothic, but nothing was super like, you know, Wednesday Addams-esque, I guess.
Yeah, and nothing really there is like necessarily like creepy. I mean, of course, like maybe some of the visuals might freak out some kids who have like stop motion has always been relatively like creepy looking just because of the bizarre movements and stuff, and so it can be unnerving for a kid seeing it for the first time, maybe who's never seen stop motion. But you know, stop motion's existed for a while, and you know, people our age are having kids and stuff and showing their kids Nightmare Before Christmas. So at this point, I feel like everyone still is aware of stop motion and stuff. But it's cool to see that it's still going strong and people like Del Toro won't let it die. But downfall is though, like, you know, all the filmmakers who kept doing it in the 90s and stuff, like, are they going to keep it going on when, you know, these filmmakers are no longer around? Like, I hope so. Yeah. Hopefully Netflix also, you know, does stuff like this too. Del Toro, I know he worked with another director. I looked up their previous work and it looked like it was all mainly short films and stuff. And curious to see what they do after this, but it looks like they did have an animation background as well. But you know, it's nice to know that they're still making stuff like this, even though it's not really the story I would have liked to have seen. I think I'd rather see Del Toro always just make an original story.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, actually, just speaking about stop motion, is Wendell and Wild came out, I think, 2 months ago, more closer to Halloween, and that was also, I'm pretty sure that was Henry Selick. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's Henry Selick, the mind that brought us Nightmare on Elm Street, sorry, Nightmare Before Christmas, and that was teamed up with Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw Productions. So, like, it is interesting that there was 2 stop motion films that were both on Netflix recently. So it's almost like Netflix is almost keeping that medium alive.
Yeah, cool. I totally forgot about that one because I remember hearing about it, but it just I overlooked it. So yeah, I'll have to go check that one out sometime soon. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it on my thoughts on Pinocchio. It's fine. I did like it, mainly for its animation. You know, just not a fan of kids, I guess, overall. But, you know, I did like Geppetto and what he overcomes in this movie. And then, like, this is the best take on Geppetto, I'd say, out of any the Pinocchio movies I've seen. Like, I'm surprised. Like, I didn't think I'd seen that many Pinocchio movies, but I've seen 4 now, I suppose. Yeah. Possibly even more. Because I know there's also a couple of horror takes on Pinocchio, but yeah, it's an interesting movie. Go check it out. It's easy to watch. It's on Netflix. Come back here, leave a comment letting us know what you thought about the movie.
If you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And if you can't get enough of us here on YouTube, check our social media links down below for Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, as well as Letterboxd accounts. That'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video, everyone.